Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today on the Draft Priority Climate Action Plan for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Climate Pollution Reduction Grants Program. We are going to get started with a little bit of housekeeping on how everyone can participate in the language of your choice. So today's webinar will be available in English and in Spanish through simultaneous translation. To select the language of your choice, double-click on the globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select your language. I will let the interpreters relay this message in Spanish as well.
Thank you, Sergio. Muy buenos días a aquellos que nos acompañan en español. Queremos dejarles saber que tenemos interpretación disponible para la sesión el día de hoy. Para escuchar en español, en breve aparecerá en la parte inferior de su pantalla un icono de un globo que dice Interpretation o Interpretación. Selecciónelo y de ahí seleccione su idioma Spanish o español. Y así podrá escuchar el programa enteramente en su idioma. Muchísimas gracias. Que disfruten el programa. Thank you, Sarah Joe. Back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start translation now. And you all should be able to hear in the language of your choice. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, I'm Sarah Jo Chambellin, International Advisor in the Executive Office of the California Air Resources Board. I've also been serving as the project manager for the state on the CPRG effort. So just to frame this webinar today, I really want to thank you for joining this virtual public webinar to present the state's draft priority climate action plan. It will be submitted on March 1st under the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Climate Pollution Reduction Grants Program, or CPRG. We are pleased to partner with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on CPRG. We see this as an opportunity not only to draft climate plans and implement the state's climate priorities, but as a way to partner with the federal government and help deliver the emissions reductions necessary to meet the commitments under the Paris Agreement and to avoid the worst effects of climate change. The Priority Climate Action Plan that we will present today is a milestone in an ongoing relationship with our federal partners in EPA, with tribal nations, fellow state agencies, representatives from counties, cities, air districts, and of course, with all of you. We're committed to continuing our work together and to find shared climate solutions that maximize emissions reductions and bring cleaner air and other benefits to our communities, particularly for those long overburdened with pollution. I'd like to thank all of the state and local agencies that have been involved in this effort. I'm pleased to say that you will hear from some of them today. So with that, let's talk a little bit about workshop logistics. And I would like to go over that this workshop is being recorded, and we will be posting a recording to the CPRG meetings and workshops page. We have 2 hours allotted, and we have a couple people in the audience, and we are going to save a time at the end of the presentations from both state and MSAs to hear from all of you. So we will open the floor after all the presentations. And hopefully we'll be able to hear from everybody who wants to speak. If we have a lot of people who want to speak, and we're going to limit remarks to 3 minutes, but it seems like we should be okay with that today. And stakeholders will also be able to submit written feedback until February 10th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And you can find a link to our to submit feedback as well as other reference documents on our CPRG webpage. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the agenda, today's agenda has 5 parts. First, we'll begin with an overview of the CPRG program. And second, we'll give a summary of the state's process to develop the Priority Climate Action Plan, or PCAP. And third, we'll hear from several state representatives about what's in the California PCAP as of now, which is the bulk of the PCAP. And fourth, we'll hear from metropolitan statistical areas, or MSAs, about their respective PCAP measures and efforts. Pardon me. Last, we'll have time for comments, feedback, and conversation with all of the participants. Thank you for holding your comments and questions for after the presentation. Our goal for this webinar is to share our progress to date under CPRG and to hear any comments from all of you. Let's go to the next slide. For those of you not familiar with CPRG, it has two parts. It was created under the Inflation Reduction Act, and it is run by the Environmental Protection Agency. In the first phase, states, metropolitan areas, tribes, and territories applied for planning grants to deliver 3 climate plans over 4 years. In the second phase, all of these entities can compete for $4.6 billion in funding to implement the actions in the first plan, the Priority Climate Action Plan, or PCAP, which is what we are discussing today. In California, the state and the metropolitan statistical areas have been offered a CPRG planning grant, as well as some tribal nations that fall within California's boundary. Next slide. So we are focusing on the PCAP today, but it also is worth pointing out that this is just the first of 3 plans under CPRG. The slide summarizes California's distinct priorities for each of the climate plans. For the Priority Climate Action Plan due on March 1st, California has prioritized outreach and coordination across the many state stakeholders and with tribal nations. Given that the PCAP is a prerequisite for competitive funding, this outreach is really critical. The Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, which is due in mid-2025, will look at all greenhouse gas sources and carbon sinks, and will have a longer list of climate actions. This plan will require more analysis as well. The 2027 status report will conclude the CPRG deliverables, and it will coincide with the state's next scoping plan. Let's go to the next slide. So this slide shows that the timeline for the steps to develop the PCAP have been very aggressive. So we've been working on this accelerated timeline since our award in September to hold dozens of meetings with various stakeholders and with tribal nations to coordinate, to develop the measures that will be presented below. In addition, the state received roughly 50 written submissions from various stakeholders suggesting climate actions to include in the Priority Climate Action Plan. We included all the measures that we could and have begun to analyze them. Our final PCAP will be submitted to EPA on March 1st, and applications from state MSAs and local governments are due on April 1st. Let's go to the next slide. For any climate measure to be eligible for CPRG implementation funding, it must be in a PCAP. With this in mind, the state has 3 goals for its PCAP. The first is to represent a no-regrets list of urgently needed climate investments aligned with the state and CPRG climate and equity goals. The second is to ensure that our measures are aligned with MSAs leading their own CPRG efforts to maximize climate investments across the state. And the third is to ensure that our PCAP includes competitive climate actions that local governments want to pursue when they don't have their own climate, their own PCAP to work under. It's important to emphasize this third bullet in case there's anybody in the audience from a local government entity that is looking to submit an application and is looking to the state's PCAP to be eligible to do that. So I wanted to list here that there are a couple of important deadlines and to encourage interested local governments to check out EPA's resources and information at the link here. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So California's PCAP includes many elements, and before we get to what is in the PCAP, I'm going to go through a few slides that cover how we have developed our PCAP. So first, it includes many elements, such as continued conversations and coordination with stakeholders across the state, as well as with tribal nations, ongoing synthesis of the state's existing and emerging climate plans and reports, a package of greenhouse gas measures, including updating our statewide greenhouse gas inventory and relying on greenhouse gas targets from state statute. We are also in the process of estimating the emissions reductions of climate actions using methodology similar to what has been developed during the scoping plan process. We will also finalize our assessment of the benefits of the climate actions and how those benefits are distributed to low-income and disadvantaged communities, the authority of the state to implement the proposed climate actions, and how CPRG climate actions complement the state's overall federal funding strategy. And the workforce needs and implications of the proposed climate actions will also be included. Next slide. So the PCAP really leverages the 2022 Scoping Plan Update, which is a higher level document than our PCAP. Our PCAP is aligned with the state's broad climate strategy, most recently outlined by the 2022 Scoping Plan update. The 2022 Scoping Plan charts a path toward carbon neutrality by 2045 and a path to reduce anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions 85% below 1990 levels by 2045. It incorporates both economy-wide emissions reductions and strategies to store carbon in natural and healthy ecosystems and through mechanical means. Achieving carbon neutrality is California's most ambitious climate goal ever. Federal investment is needed as part of this work, and it will deliver major benefits. For example, the 2022 Scoping Plan shows that by 2045, we need 30 times as many light, medium, and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles on the road, 6 times as many electric appliances in homes, 1,700 times as much hydrogen supply, 4 times as much as installed wind and solar capacity, and action on over 2.5 million acres of natural and working lands per year. The key outcomes are part of the suite of actions driving substantial greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and achieving the plan's outcomes would result in huge benefits, including a 94% decrease in liquid petroleum demand, a 91% decrease in fossil gas used in buildings, and a 66% decrease in methane emissions from agriculture, and a 10% reduction in wildfire emissions. Our PCAP measures and CPRG funding can help us implement near-term measures that is required for the sustained transformation over the next 2 decades. Next slide, please. There are also many contributors to our PCAP. This is a list of the types of partners that we've been engaging with that we will be engaging with throughout the 4-year CPRG program and for our PCAP. The state CPRG, the state agency CPRG task force members, local governments such as metropolitan statistical areas, cities and counties, air districts, tribal nations, low-income and disadvantaged communities, nonprofits and private sector stakeholders, and of course, members of the public. Next slide, please. Like California's overall climate efforts, the development of this PCAP has been a multi-agency effort, particularly for the state agency CPRG task force members, as shown here. Next slide. We are also coordinating with all of the MSAs across the state that have also been offered a CPRG planning grant to see where we can join forces and where we can stay coordinated and complement each other's efforts. The gray parts of this map show the parts of the state that do not have a priority climate action plan, and we are including their measures in our PCAP because they don't have their own. Next slide. The state has conducted outreach to tribes through numerous virtual and in-person events and is consulting with tribes on a government-to-government basis. Our final PCAP will reflect those conversations. Next slide. Low-income communities and communities of color are impacted from climate change and from the cost of confronting it. The state has centered equity in its scoping plan and other processes, and for CPRG, we are following EPA's guidance and assessing how our PCAP will affect low-income and disadvantaged communities as defined by the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, or CJEST, and as well as supplemental data from EPA's Environmental Justice Screening Mapping Tool, or EJ Screen. These are shown in yellow and light blue areas of this map. Next slide. In developing the measures for this PCAP, we paid particular attention to the scoring criteria for the competitive portion of CPRG. We have aimed to elevate urgent funding needs that will be competitive under this program. EPA seems to be prioritizing measures that are well thought out and ready to implement, achieve significant greenhouse gas emissions reductions, particularly in the near term between 2025 and 2030, yield significant co-benefits such as air quality improvements, and ensure that those benefits accrue to low-income and disadvantaged communities. And they're also looking for measures that create jobs and bolster workforce efforts. They are also looking to see that implementing agencies have a proven track record and the staff and capacity to implement each measure. Next slide. So this is a pie chart showing California's greenhouse gas emission inventory. We are leveraging this inventory for our PCAP along other granular greenhouse gas emissions data for each measure. This chart breaks down the statewide emissions for specific greenhouse gases that were originally included in our 2006 Climate Bill AB 32. Our natural and working lands inventory is separate and not included here. We will now go into our PCAP measures, which I want to remind the audience that are draft and subject to change. And we will start with transportation, our largest source of greenhouse gas emissions across the state. So next slide, please. Great. And in addition to being the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, medium and heavy duty vehicles contribute heavily to air pollution across the state. We have many priority measures to address these shared challenges. In addition, I want to highlight that the double asterisks on the slide indicate measures that are particularly suited for local government authorities without their own planning grant to look at in our PCAP and consider applying for. With that, I will first turn it to my colleague Bruce Tudor to discuss the first two PCAP measures on this slide.
Sorry, Sarah Jo, just finding all of my unmutes and all that good stuff. All right. So the very first thing on here is create a holistic heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle buy-down program. What does that mean? So CARB currently has, pardon me, CARB currently has a couple of programs in place that we would like to use to leverage these funds, in addition to a new program that we're going to be developing, or that we are developing, really. The first two programs are actually related. They are our incentive programs. One is called HVIP. It's the Hybrid Voucher Incentive Program. Really, it funds zero-emission vehicles for both large and small fleets, although the fleet sizes that it will fund are getting smaller and smaller. So it is really getting more aimed at those smaller fleets. The second program, which is actually a part of the Hybrid Voucher Incentive Program, is called ISEF. That is the Innovative Small E-Fleets Program, aimed exactly at helping small fleets get into zero-emission vehicles, whether those small fleets are part of are covered by our regulations, such as the Advanced Clean Fleet Regulation, or not. So those are two very important programs. Again, helping people, it buys down the cost of the vehicle considerably, helps people to get into those vehicles. The other program that we're developing really builds on a previous very successful program that we had. That program was called the Loan Loss Reserve Program. Basically, what that program did, and it was designed for diesel owners to help them, small fleets again, get into compliance with our regulations. Basically, what happened at that point is a small fleet, didn't have very good credit, maybe even couldn't get a loan or a very high interest loan. CARB put money into a loan loss reserve pool that lenders could tap into to make themselves whole if someone defaulted on a loan, if someone being a small fleet owner defaulted on a loan. The loan loss rate, the actual loss rate was very low. I believe it was somewhere around 2%. So it was an extremely successful program, somewhere around 30,000 plus loans over the years that it ran. And what we're doing now is we are developing a program that's called the Zero Emission Vehicle Loan Loss Pilot. So we're doing that same kind of thing, smaller amount of funds at the moment, only $5 million, but it's the same kind of thing to help mostly smaller fleets. I say mostly because the fleet size for the original program was 10 or fewer. Trucks will probably increase that size a little bit, but the idea is exactly the same. Lenders, it's very difficult, sure, Sarah Jo, sorry. It's really difficult for these small fleets to get a loan on zero-emission vehicles. This will help them do that. Now, by tapping into these funds, we can greatly expand that program in order to help even more fleets. We can also help with things like setting residual values. We may institute a used vehicle voucher. So there's just a huge number of things that we can incorporate. And Sergio, I'm on the core program. I'm not as familiar with I mean, I know the core program, but I am not as good as possibly you was on yesterday to talk about that. I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm happy to, at a really high level, just say that this measure included in our PCAP would expand the success of the core program, which funds medium and heavy duty equipment across different ports and seaports and inland ports, and would just propel the success of that. It has been oversubscribed every funding cycle as far as I can see. So federal funding would come into that to boost it. And with that, I would love to turn it over to our colleague Kelly to discuss number 3 on this list.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Kelly McClendon, Office Chief of Technical Freight Planning in Caltrans, and I'm speaking about the Port and Freight Infrastructure Program on behalf of Caltrans as well as California State Transportation Agency, or CalSTA. 2 years ago, CalSTA established the Port and Freight Infrastructure Program, or PFIP. The PFIP is a landmark program for implementing clean, efficient, sustainable, and resilient components within the state's freight system. PFIP projects will significantly transform our freight system, but we know that more funding is needed to scale the program and build additional shovel-ready projects. We encourage regions to include freight infrastructure projects and port infrastructure projects in your upcoming applications. The PFIP will not be included in CARB's statewide implementation application, but it's important to include within the statewide action plan to highlight this as a state priority. If you'd like to discuss including any port and freight projects in your PCAP or in your implementation applications, please contact Jennifer Duran and I will include her email in the chat. Thank you, and I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah Jo. Good morning. My name is Jim McKinney. I'm with the California Energy Commission, where I'm a senior policy analyst in the Fuels and Transportation Division. I'm going to talk about our CPRG truck charging proposal. So we have 1 million trucks in California that are essential to efficient goods movement and a healthy state economy. These 1 million trucks represent just 3% of the total 30 million vehicle fleet in the state, but generate disproportionate amounts of carbon, particulate, and NOx pollution. For example, trucks are responsible for 25% of on-road GHG emissions, 33% of on-road NOx, and 70% of the known cancer risks from toxic air contaminants. Reducing diesel emissions will create important climate reduction and public health benefits for those communities located near freeway corridors, ports, and warehouse districts. Electrifying our truck fleet is one of the most promising technologies for reducing transportation diesel emissions, with fuel cells being the other. We have just a handful of operational zero-emission trucks right now, fewer than 500, we think, in California, along with about 350 delivery vans. However, this is going to change quickly as we have at least 140,000 orders nationwide for new zero-emission trucks, and we can assume that more than half of those will come to California, as happened with the passenger vehicle market. CARB's Advanced Clean Fleets and Advanced Clean Trucks regulations will further drive manufacture and adoption of zero-emission trucks. And the major truck OEMs, like Volvo, Daimler, PACCAR, and Navistar, are all working on their own zero-emission truck technologies. This creates an immense need for truck chargers. To support and charge 155,000 trucks targeted for 2030 adoption, our state will need 109,000 depot chargers and 5,500 public chargers. By 2035, to support 377,000 trucks, this is going to climb to 250,000 depot chargers and 8,500 public chargers. CEC's Energize program, which stands for the Infrastructure Incentives for Zero-Emission Commercial Vehicles, is the country's first large-scale commercial fleet ZEV infrastructure funding program. It's administered by CalSTART and is designed to fund near-term shovel-ready projects. To date, we've issued nearly 200 awards valued at $115 million, and this has funded 1,800 chargers. Some of the award windows for this program have literally filled within minutes of posting, and we think it's an ideal method to rapidly distribute federal CPRG funding to shovel-ready truck charging projects. And now I want to say a few words about local deployment for ZEVs and ZEV infrastructure. Local and tribal governments in rural areas have the authorities to plan and develop charging infrastructure and to compete for incentive funding through existing state and federal programs. Charger installations in rural areas are occurring more slowly than urban and suburban areas, denying these communities the economic and environmental benefits of ZEV adoption. One reason is that there is often not enough demand from ZEV drivers to justify private market investments. Another issue is that existing incentive funding programs are often highly competitive, and local and tribal governments may not have the staff capacities to compete against urban and metro scale governments. This measure seeks to use community-level CPRG funding in rural and tribal communities so that they can also enjoy the economic, environmental, and technical benefits of zero-emission transportation. It passes back to you, Sarah Jo.
Thank you, Jim. And to tackle number 6 on this slide, I'll just say a few notes from my colleagues here at CARB. So this transportation action, it really aims to uplift actions that have previously been elevated by communities through CARB's Clean Mobility in Schools program, the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP, and the Clean Mobility Options program. This measure could cover a diverse collection of projects, including active transportation infrastructure, new and expanded zero-emission public transit and school bus services, and shared mobility services such as zero-emission microtransit and e-bike lending libraries. So that's what number 6 is about. Let's go to the next slide, please. So California's industrial sector, which includes upstream oil and gas extraction, refining operations for transportation fuels, and many other types of manufacturing and industrial processes, contributes to roughly 19% of California's total greenhouse gas emissions. I'd like to invite Alex to present the industrial measure in California has included in its PCAP.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Ranjic. I'm from the California Energy Commission. So this industrial PCAP measure would allow for the expansion of the Industrial Decarbonization and Improvement to Grid Operations Program, or INDIGO, which the CEC is currently administering. So what the INDIGO program does is it provides incentives for industrial projects that provide benefits to the electrical grid and reduce greenhouse gas and local air pollution. The INDIGO program targets California's manufacturing sector and includes chemicals, metals, food and beverages, non-metallic minerals, and other related support facilities. So with possible bolstered funding from the CPRG implementation grant funds, additional INDIGO projects could accelerate decarbonization of California's industry, expand opportunities to reduce stress on the electric grid, and provide other co-benefits such as improved air quality, job creation, and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I want to turn it over to our colleague at CPUC. I'm sorry, let me give a little bit of background on the energy measures that we have here. So just to frame this a little bit, electricity currently comprises 16% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions, according to our latest inventory. Our measures here include electricity, and they also include some additional fuels. As the state begins to implement broad-scale efforts to reduce carbon, to reach carbon neutrality by 2045, a clean, affordable, and reliable electricity grid will serve as the backbone to support deep decarbonization across California's economy. The measures presented here would each play a unique and important role in that transition. So to begin, I'd like to call on Monica from CEC.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Monica Redman, and I'm with the California Energy Commission representing the IIJA program.
Monica, sorry to interrupt you. Can you speak up a little bit? It's a little hard to hear you.
Okay. Is this better?
It's a little better. Yes, thank you.
I'll try to speak a little louder. We appreciate the opportunity to expand on the success of the Energy Conservation Assistant Account Program, IIJA. IIJA is one of the longest running programs at the California Energy Commission, having been in existence since 1979. The Energy Commission developed it to assist public agencies, schools, and tribes install energy efficiency and clean energy generation projects. The program provides financing for eligible measures, including solar systems, fleet EV charging, infrastructure, on-site energy storage, lighting retrofits, control systems, and HVAC efficiency improvements. Project measures create energy and cost savings for the loan recipients. In addition, when fossil fuel use is reduced, the measures installed reduce greenhouse gases. When the projects are completed, the loan recipients pay back the loan, and the Energy Commission then relends the funds. Since the inception of the program, IIJA has funded more than 950 projects totaling over $1.5 billion. The program has funded projects in every one of the California's counties and has served many disadvantaged communities. IIJA is separated into two sub-programs, IIJA Regular and IIJA Educational. IIJA Regular is for public entities such as local governments, California Native American tribes, and special districts, such as park and water districts. The program offers 1% interest loans with a maximum loan amount of $3 million. The IIJA Educational Subaccount, commonly referred to as IIJA Ed, is open to certain public schools, school districts, and charter schools. IIJA Ed offers 0% loans with loan maximums from $3 to $5 million, depending on the project. There is currently a waiting list for loans. With the expansion of the IIJA program from CPRG funds, the CEC will be able to award more than 20 additional loans, including loans to California Native Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. For the next two measures on this slide, I'd like to invite Lou Wam to present.
Thank you, Sarah Jo. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luam Tesfaye. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Energy and Climate Policy at the California Public Utilities Commission. So I appreciate the opportunity to present on these two energy measures, the first one being to create a program to up the distribution system capacity upgrades funding program. This program is really so important and touches on many of the different programs you'll be hearing about today. So the distribution system capacity upgrade funding program proposal would leverage funds to spur upgrades to the electric distribution system to increase capacity and support climate initiatives like transportation and building electrification. Electrification programs are key to reducing California's reliance on fossil fuels for internal combustion vehicles, as well as space and water heating that leverages natural gas. You know, we've already heard today about some of the transportation electrification initiatives. California has already created numerous incentives to help customers buy things like electric vehicles, or even install electric vehicle charging infrastructure, or to buy heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. But these technologies require buildings and sites to draw much more electricity than the current distribution system is equipped for. This is requiring costly upgrades to be able to keep up with all of these programs that we want to use to decarbonize our economy. And they're all paid for by electric ratepayers in their monthly bills. And so this creates a disincentive for customers to electrify because electricity costs are going up, rates are going up to charge vehicles, et cetera. So this program proposal would create a new fund to pay for these costly distribution system upgrades needed to support California's electrification goals. This program would be implemented by the Public Utilities Commission in consultation with our sister agencies like the Energy Commission, who's also funding electric vehicle charging infrastructure programs, as well as the California Air Resources Board, who's funding electric vehicle incentive programs and drafting regulations to shift to zero emission appliances and transportation. And then Sarah, can I move on to number 3?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Great. So number 3 is, our title for this is Enhancing Resilience and Reducing Greenhouse Gas Emissions by Leveraging Behind-the-Meter Energy Storage via the Self-Generation Incentive Program. And so the project proposal would provide funding for behind-the-meter energy storage for residential customers with a focus on low-income residential customers to enhance resilience, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and support affordability. This proposed action would expand an existing program that California has managed through the Public Utilities Commission called the Self-Generation Incentive Program, which is over 20 years old and has been very successful at distributing funds to customers and would help to scale up this program to make it transformative. And some of the major features would include providing low-income residential customers with behind-the-meter energy storage. This type of storage helps to enhance resilience for these customers in the event of a power outage, for example. And then California has also adopted time of use rates, which reflect higher prices during times of day when fossil fuel resources are most in use, and lower prices when greenhouse gas-free resources are plentiful, like in the middle of the day for solar. So this behind the meter storage will be programmed to charge during the times of day when rates are the lowest, and batteries will be leveraged during the net peak when greenhouse gas emissions and prices are the highest to help enhance affordability for low income customers. Leveraging behind the meter energy storage as described will also reduce demand on the grid. So that's going to enhance reliability of the electric grid overall. And if customers are enrolled in a demand response program, any excess battery storage from their system could also be discharged in the form of technologies such as virtual power plants. So that's my description, and happy to move on to the next speaker. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Luam. For number 4, I'm going to go ahead and ask Graham to take the virtual mic.
Good morning. My name is Graham St. Michel. I'm with the California Department of Conservation. I'm here to talk about the department's biomass to carbon negative biofuels program, which seeks to fund projects that will convert California forest and agricultural biomass waste into carbon negative fuels. If supported with federal funding, the program looks to expand its scope statewide beyond its original limitation to projects that are located in the Sierra Nevada. And this expansion in scope would also help draw in projects that utilize agricultural biomass in addition to forest biomass, thereby helping to catalyze a viable private market for these wastes and addressing climate impacts associated with both California agriculture and forest wildfires. The program also includes a woody biomass feedstock aggregation pilot component, which is exploring methods to promote a more predictable feedstock supply, especially in regard to forest waste. That's all I have, Sergio.
Thanks, Graham. For number 5, I'll go ahead and ask Alex to take the stage again.
Hi, all. So Alex Frangic again from the California Energy Commission. So this renewable microgrids for rural communities and tribes measure number 5 on the screen would enable local governments and tribal nations in rural parts of the state to pursue clean energy microgrid projects through the CPRG implementation grants. So these projects can support energy reliability and resilience for their communities. They can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and provide other co-benefits such as economic development, improved air quality, job creation, and many other co-benefits. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex. And finally, for the 6th measure on this screen, this includes emerging opportunities elevated by local jurisdictions to create renewable energy, including renewable hydrogen, from various organic waste sources, such as landfill methane, woody biomass, yard and agriculture waste, and biosolids. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So I will be covering this for my colleagues at CARB, who are the real experts in this, but just to frame this, as of the latest greenhouse gas emission inventory, high global warming potential gases comprise almost 6% of the state's emissions in the greenhouse gas inventory. We're including one measure here to really recognize the outsized climate effects that these types of gases have on the climate, especially in the near term. This measure would expand CARB's existing F-gas reduction incentive program, or FRIP, which propel its success in reducing high global warming potential gases from commercial and industrial refrigeration systems. So I'll keep that brief, and let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And so in turning to the agriculture sector and the measures in our PCAP, I would invite Nina to come and take the stage.
Thanks, Sarah Jo. I'm Nina Bingham. I am an environmental scientist with the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and I work for the Office of Environmental Farming and Innovation. So let me give a quick introduction on California's agricultural economy. We're the biggest in the United States with over 400 specialty crops. We, as a state, produce 1/3 of our country's vegetables and 75% of the country's fruit and nuts. And our dairy products are our top commodity, bringing in over $10 billion per year. That being said, the ag sector from ag and forestry represents about 8% of California's greenhouse gas emissions. And about 35% of that, or just a little over 1/3, Of that 8% is from dairy manure management. So our ag-related measures with this plan include expanding on 2 of our existing programs. First, we plan on extending the Healthy Soils program. This will continue to invest in practices on farm that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and sequester carbon, as well as providing technical assistance to help with that implementation of those practices. Second, we'll be expanding our dairy digester program. This is the most effective program per dollar in terms of greenhouse gas reductions. Expansion on this would focus on opportunities for smaller dairies to participate in developing digesters, as well as research into producing hydrogen from digester biogas. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Nina. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I will be discussing a little bit about our natural and working lands, again, because my colleagues couldn't join either from the California Natural Resources Agency or from CARB. So to frame natural and working lands, as climate change increases the likelihood of extreme wildfire, drought, heat, and other impacts, carbon stocks in California's natural and working lands will face increased risk and major impacts. Natural and working lands cover approximately 90% of the state's 105 million acres and include California Native American ancestral and cultural lands. They also include parks and green spaces in our cities and waters and iconic landscapes that are known and loved across the nation. The first measure in this PCAP would bolster the Forest Health Program, an initiative of the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, or CAL FIRE, and would expand funding for a critical range of activities, including reduction of fuel, controlled burns and pest management, reforestation projects, and biomass utilization. The second measure on this slide would expand the urban and community forest project across the state. And this would help increase urban tree canopies while delivering energy conservation and storm water runoff reduction, improving air quality, soil and water quality, and enhancing public health and property values. The third measure on this list would further the achievement of the state's existing wetland restoration program to support a variety of wetland restoration projects, including re-wetting peat soils to reduce carbon emissions, restoring mountain meadows for sequestering carbon, and for enhancing wetland biodiversity. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And for the waste sector, I'd like to invite Scott to go ahead and take the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. My name is Scott Beckner, and I manage the Business Assistance and Market Development team here at CalRecycle and coordinated the development of CalRecycle's proposals for this PCAP. Of the proposals we prepared, 2 are included in the draft statewide PCAP: organics, recycling infrastructure, and food waste prevention and recovery. Both are existing programs at CalRecycle, but could be administered locally as well. So we encourage MSAs and locals to consider including these and other materials management priorities in their PCAPs. So starting with food waste prevention and edible food recovery, these are strategies to reduce the amount of food wasted and landfilled, and they represent huge opportunities to help relieve food insecurity issues that millions of Californians face every day. They just so happen to also reduce a substantial amount of methane. So, according to our recent waste characterization study, 4.3 million tons of food is sent to landfill each year in California, and that includes about 1.5 million tons of potentially donatable food. So a huge opportunity here. To date, CalRecycle has provided about $28 million through several grant programs, resulting in the equivalent of about 242 million meals recovered. And we've done a lot of work with, and the locals have done a tremendous amount of successful projects around the state, but there's a heck of a lot more that we can still do. So we believe that these CPRG funds can continue the good work California's already done, especially given the current budget situation and unclear funding picture for new cycles of these grants. And I want to encourage MSAs and locals to include similar language in their own PCAPs or to participate in applications for applying for these funds. Second climate action that's included in the draft PCAP is expanding California's composting, anaerobic digestion, and co-digestion infrastructure, as well as an opportunity to expand biomass feedstock recycling. When the state's 1383 goals and program is fully implemented, we'll need to divert an additional 12 to 14 million tons of organic waste from landfills, and we have an organic recycling capacity shortfall of about 8 million tons. So this really underscores just how critical the need is to continue investing in organics recycling. Despite significant contributions from the state, this funding has been insufficient to meet the rising demand. In our last year's cycle alone, we awarded over $130 million to 23 projects. But 10 eligible projects were waitlisted due to lack of funds, and CPRG funding could really bring these projects to fruition and could attract substantial matching private investments in the process. There are countless other opportunities in the waste sector not captured here in these two actions. And I really want to encourage MSAs to think outside the box, think about including opportunities for reuse and source reduction, in addition to the efforts that we've put together here. And so thanks, Sarah Jo. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Scott. That concludes the measures that have been included in the state Priority Climate Action Plan to date, and I'm really pleased that we have 3 different MSA CPRG leads joining us today from the LA Anaheim Long Beach MSA, from the Riverside San Bernardino MSA, and from the Ventura MSA. So we can go to the next slide. First up is Lisa. So Lisa, I'll hand it over to you. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Tanaka, and I am the Assistant Deputy Executive Officer for Legislative and Public Affairs from South Coast AQMD. But today I'm here representing the Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim Metropolitan Statistical Area. Next slide. So our MSA is the second largest in the nation. We have over 13 million in population, and we are actually part of the SCAG region. And in the SCAG region, there are technically 3 MSAs, and you're going to hear from the IE shortly, but that would be the Los Angeles, Orange County, Inland Empire, and Ventura. So if you looked at all of us together, we would be the 5th largest state in the nation. So really, when you're looking at our region, it's pretty large. In the Los Angeles, Orange County MSA area, we formed a steering committee with our planning grant. And the lead for that steering committee is the County of Los Angeles, but it also includes our Metropolitan Planning Organization, SCAG, ourselves as the Regional Air Quality Management District, both the counties, the cities, and our transportation agencies. We also have additional agencies that may be part of the counties or cities that participate on a regular basis. So it's a pretty broad group, including waste, energy, and transportation. Next slide. So for our Priority Climate Action Plan, what we started out with, working with a consultant, is we pulled together over 54 local and regional climate action and other types of plans, including our Port Climate Action Plans and South Coast AQMD's Air Quality Management Plan. Through that sort of measures library, we kind of discussed and focused, and we got down to about 18 measures, and they all focus on either transportation and goods movement, energy, and waste. And those focus areas were selected based on their contribution of greenhouse gases and criteria pollutants and impacts on our low-income and disadvantaged communities and the economics. Next slide. So as Sarah Jo really explained well, the time frame has been extremely compressed. I'm sure all of you can commiserate with that. We've been trying to actively outreach on the CPRG program. We really tried to leverage and work with our councils of government because they represent all of the regions in our area. We've gone to agencies, different kinds of nonprofits, CBOs, you name it. If they will talk to us, we are talking CPRG. So we've been simultaneously doing that while we've been developing our draft PCAP. We hope to have that out in early February. And we're continuing to do outreach. We're going to do some focus groups with environmental justice groups. In Q1 of this year, we'll go back to all of the stakeholders that we have been consistently speaking and working with the plan due on March 1st. And then something that our MPO did was they created a web page with an online portal. So if an entity is interested in submitting a CPRG proposal, they can enter their information, and then they're added to a list, which is available on that web page, and the link is there, so that they can figure out who they can talk to about similar proposals and really get that regional, multi-jurisdictional collaboration. Next slide. So that's it. If you have questions or anything about the LA Orange County MSA, please feel free to reach out to Ryan Wolf from SCAG, or Sebastian. They've really sort of been leading as a point person, or you can also reach out to me as the Regional Air Quality Agency. We've taken an active role. And that completes the presentation. Thanks so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to have you and your perspective and all the efforts behind everything you shared today. Next up, I think we will go ahead and turn it to, I believe, Casey. And I know you don't have slides, so we'll just keep this one up here as a placeholder for you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah Jo, and good morning, everybody. My name is Casey Daly. I'm the Director of Energy and Environmental Programs for the Western Riverside Council of Governments, or WRCOG. Happy to be here today on behalf of the Riverside San Bernardino Ontario MSA and the 3 councils of government that include all 52 cities in both the counties of Riverside and San Bernardino. While not the second largest MSA in the nation, our MSA is the 12th largest in the nation. Our PCAP is currently being led by our colleagues at the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, SBCTA, and the San Bernardino Council of Governments. It's being done in coordination with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, or CVAG, as well as WRCOG. We're also coordinating with Lisa and her team with the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And as Lisa alluded to, we've also engaged with SCAG, who's been helping with coordination efforts amongst the MSAs, as well as community outreach. I'm not sharing slides today, just because everything I'm about to share still needs to go through final approval from our respective agencies, but this is the direction we're headed. So our PCAP is focused in 2 main sectors, transportation and buildings. Under the transportation sector, we're splitting it between a goods movement component and a zero emission infrastructure development component. For the ZEV infrastructure, we're looking at ways to begin building out a network of multiple levels of chargers throughout our 2-county region, which stretches from the borders of Los Angeles, Orange, and San Diego counties, all the way out to Arizona and Nevada. Our goods movement component is actually being developed and to be applied for and implemented by our colleagues at the Air Quality Management District. For the building sector, we're looking at 2 areas. We're looking at a public sector building program as well as a residential program. For the public building program, we're looking to establish a building decarbonization revolving loan fund to fund gas decommissioning, renewable energy and storage, as well as energy efficiency projects at publicly owned buildings, including development of community resilience centers throughout the region. This program is being modeled to plug and play with the existing suite of public sector technical assistance and energy planning services already offered by the Inland Regional Energy Network, or IREN, for the public agencies of both Riverside and San Bernardino counties. The second component of our the building sector will be a low-income and LIDAC residential decarb direct install program. This one is being modeled to enhance and support the Energy Commission's residential decarbonization direct install program. And then I'll just say both the broad sector measures and program specific measures have been identified and developed in conjunction and coordination with all of our local agencies to ensure what's being proposed is aligned with both their current and future needs. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and welcome any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much, Casey. Great to have you. Thank you for joining us today. With that, I think we will turn to the Ventura MSA. So Victor, invite you to take the stage.
Thanks, Sarah Jo. Hi, everybody. My name is Victor Briones. I'm with the County of Ventura Sustainability Division, and we are the lead agency for the Ventura MSA. We are working, sorry, we can move on to the next slide. Our efforts are we are working on our PCAP with, similar to LA, working with an advisory group comprised of the county, of course, as a lead, and with all of our cities, the city of Fillmore, Moore Park, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, Santa Paula, Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Ventura, as well as the Port of Hueneme, Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, the Ventura County Transportation Commission, and a community-based organization, Central Coast Climate Justice Network. Our work has also included working with consultants to help us with the PCAP, that's Rincon and Ramey & Associates. And some of the work that we've also done to help inform our PCAP is putting out a community survey to get input from the community on the sectors that we've selected to focus on in the PCAP, and then as well as furthering our collaborations by participating in EPA-led technical assistance forums, state-led discussions, and then, as LA mentioned, also with Southern California Association of Governments. Next slide, please. So our CPRG advisory group got together and selected these 3 priority sectors to focus on in our PCAP, the first being transportation, second, building energy, and the last, solid waste. We can go ahead and go on to the next slide. And so these are some of the draft measures that we're working on. There may be potential for some other additions, and of course they are subject to change. But first off, we're going to be focusing on so far 3 measures for building energy, which will include supporting an equitable transition to 100% carbon-free electricity. The next one would be developing an indoor air quality regulation for new residential and commercial construction. And then the last in the building energy will be expanding on the Tri-County Regional Energy Networks programs supporting electrification of affordable housing units. As for transportation, we'll be focusing on supporting the addition of new public EV charging stations and prioritizing multifamily housing developments and the county's largest workspaces in that. And we'll also be promoting and expanding equitable, safe, efficient, and affordable multimodal transportation hubs to reduce single occupancy vehicle miles traveled. And for solid waste, we are working to support the development of organic waste diversion programs and facilities to help divert organic materials. So of course, this is all still subject to change. But we're working with the cities, other agencies within our county, and our CBOs to help better inform our PCAP, make sure we're including meaningful measures in the PCAP. Next slide, please. And that's pretty much it for the Ventura MSA. My information's on this slide deck here. We still have our community survey up out on our website. So we do have it available in English and Spanish, and our website can be found at sustain.ventura.org, and we'll have more information on our VC recap is what we're calling it, webpage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Really appreciate hearing the work from you and from everybody at the MFA level in a very big and populated region, which is Southern California. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We have reached the point of the show today where we're going to be taking comments from all webinar participants. So as a reminder, if you'd like to share feedback or ask a question, please use the raise hand button, which should be located on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window, as shown. When staff calls your name and activates your audio controls, please click the unmute button and proceed to introduce yourself and provide your comment. Stakeholders will also be able to submit written feedback, as I mentioned before, until February 10th on the State Priority Climate Action Plan on our website. So you can find a link to submit that feedback on our CPRG meetings and workshops page. And as a reminder, we're asking all participants to keep their comments to 3 minutes and to accommodate so that we can accommodate as many people as we can. We will have a timer on the top right of the screen so that you can see how much time you have remaining. And with that, I will now turn it over to my colleague, Neely, who will be facilitating the public comment session.
Hello all, Mr. Spencer Beckman. I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. And thank you everyone for a nice, informative presentation. That was really enjoyable to listen to. I'm based in LA. I have a motorsport engineering degree, and I had a lifelong dream of starting a car company. So that's what I'm currently doing in Los Angeles. We are developing vehicles with a goal to, really be leaders in a low carbon footprint model, let's call it. But part of that is I've been looking at a lot of research that Europe has been doing on the same thing and seeing how Europe's decarbonization dialogue has shifted over the last 5 years from electrify everything to decarbonize everything. And I know that the US is putting more energy and resources into hydrogen research too. I was wondering if there's any talk on a high level of CARB or other agencies in terms of having a similar shift in their language, let's call it, with respect to the transport industry.
Thank you, Spencer, for that comment and that question. So I will say that the ZEV roadmap developed by the state is technology agnostic. And so hydrogen is a part of that mix. And we definitely try to enable whatever zero emission technology or marketplace can best serve mobility needs and meet our climate and our air quality goals. So it's definitely in the mix.
Susan Friedman, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hi there. Good morning. My name is Susan Friedman with the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, and we're the MSA lead for the San Diego region. So just wanted to share that we're also actively working with our local governments on our PCAP and phase 2 application. We're also doing a lot of community engagement. We just held our second climate table last week, where we had over 70 participants from local community-based organizations, nonprofits, local governments, and other agencies in attendance. And we're really looking to focus on transportation, reducing vehicle miles traveled through increasing transit opportunities, as well as flexible fleet projects and bike projects, some transportation electrification, and then building electrification. So those are our main focus areas, with some extra little things as well. But happy to talk to anybody who has interest in the San Diego area, can follow up after, but really appreciate CARB and the work that they're doing with working with the MSAs and with everyone so that we have a coordinated effort at the state and regional levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. And I really just want to elevate that San Diego and SANDAG in particular have been doing an amazing job, and they've been really great partners to all of us here who have presented. Thank you for joining, Susan, and for speaking up. It's really good to have you here today.
Edgar Becerra, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hi, Edgar Becerra. I don't work for the city of La Habra, but I live in La Habra. And I really appreciate this as forum. I think the transportation is major, as shown, was a major climate issue. But I would like to see consideration for studies or efforts to make sure that residential communities have connectivity to their local commercial employment and education centers by way of low-speed vehicles. In my particular area, we are locked in by streets that have 40 mile per hour or greater, and so it's not possible to utilize neighborhood electric vehicles for transport. The second one I was thinking about was around reporting in the various caps that I've read around reporting on the number and of safe and secure bike parking at community facilities, businesses, and places of employment. For currently, when I read sustainability reports or climate action plans, I often see the number of parking spots, but not often the number of secure bike parking spots. And perhaps cities, municipalities, CARB, or somebody could provide some requirement for reporting and or goal setting for a percentage of parking for bike and e-bike options. This kind of works in conjunction with the safe streets and low speed vehicle thing because it makes it safer for everybody. And then third, in terms of electrification, very exciting. And I liked what Ventura mentioned about their transportation focusing on EV charging at workplace. And so if we can work with our cities, counties, and governments to implement widespread daytime employee EV charging, this would be a very clean way to move around and perhaps be one place where people can work, especially if it's dedicated charging for employees that don't have access to charging at their condo, apartment, or rental house. So that's all I have, but thank you very much for this forum, and I'm really excited about what California is doing in regards to sustainability and climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you for your comments. We're definitely recording this and taking notes, but if also you wanted to list those details in a written format via our public comment page, we would really appreciate that as well, just so we can make sure that we are tracking all of the good suggestions. Thank you again.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Scott Rogers, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for this presentation. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to give feedback. I'm Scott Rogers. I'm with the Palmdale Water District, and I was wondering if this group, speaking with California or the MSAs, if they consider direct air capture as part of a strategy to reduce greenhouse gases.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So in our scoping plan, I will say that we are looking at all of the available tools on the table, so including removal of carbon either through ecosystems or through mechanical means. And so if you have, it sounds like you have a particular project perhaps in mind. If you look at the draft PCAP, we have a measure there that is related to biosolids. I'm not sure if that would encompass the idea that you're thinking of. If it does not, if you want to send us a pretty detailed comment through the comment page, we can take a look at any proposal that way and see if it can fit in the PCAP. I will say that some of the guidance from EPA points to more shovel-ready, proven projects as opposed to kind of research and development projects. So that is one thing that we're looking for when we get ideas. That it meets the criteria that EPA has set out. But definitely feel free to put your comments, if you have detailed comments, in writing, and that will be easier for us to evaluate.
Zoe Dawson, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and for the wealth of information that you've been sharing. My name's Zoe Dawson. I'm a managing consultant at VIC. I'm actually based in the state of Vermont, but VIC works across the country and currently administers with many other partners CalNext, the statewide initiative to identify, test, and grow various different electric technologies to help decarbonize the state, alongside Tech Clean California, that many of you may also be aware with, which is around the acceleration, the adoption of clean space and water heating technology. I come from a very specific focus for this conversation, and that's around refrigerant management. And I have to say, Sarah, I was absolutely delighted to see you call out the expansion of the state's F-gas reduction initiative program underneath your specific goals and programs that you're looking to elevate underneath EPA CPRG funding. I'd be really curious if you have any additional details you could share on that with regards to either potential markets that you're focusing on, system sizes, and or if indeed you're looking to add other reclamation, recovery, or destruction of F-gases underneath this expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. So I think I will not do this measure justice. I encourage you to go to our website. Our draft PCAP is up. And let me see, let me look at this link here. Yes, the link here at the bottom of this screen, you can find our draft PCAP in PDF form, and it describes what the proposed measure would cover. It is really focused, I believe, on industrial and commercial refrigeration units. I know that there are other sources of F gases, but it's really focused on that particular sector. So if after reading that you have additional comments or suggestions, again, welcome that in written format so that we can really dig into the details that you're suggesting. But thank you so much for the comment. I really appreciate it.
Nicola Stilnick, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting. Would it be possible to direct a question to one of the local MSAs, specifically the Riverside San Bernardino County?
I don't see why not.
All right, perfect. I was curious if there's any upcoming engagement opportunities for local communities. I work with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, and we have an office in the ECV, and we would love to be more involved if at all possible, but I haven't seen anything online about potential community meetings or outreach options. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, this is Casey. So up until now, most of the community engagement has been coordinated through SCAG as our MPO. However, I'd be happy to put my contact information in the chat here. You can feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can. I'd be happy to set up a conversation with you.
I do want to say that our chat is not enabled, Casey, so we'll have to figure out another way to get your contact information out.
No problem.
Yeah.
Garrett Wong, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, Garrett Wong here. I work for the County of Santa Barbara. I'm also a member of the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. I just want to thank and recognize everyone for their hard work on pulling these together. One thing I wanted to call out is that I would like to see more attention on regulatory reform as it relates to the electric utility system. The Public Utilities Commission and the investor-owned utilities have been making moves to make distributed energy resources and electrification more challenging for customers at all levels, and especially for low-income customers. And I think we need to see some sort of reform to make sure that going forth that electric rates are not going to increase and that people will continue to have access to distributed energy resources and be able to retain the full value of those resources. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I really appreciate that perspective.
Linda Koskela, I have enabled your audio. Please unmute yourself and begin. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Linda Koskela. I'm an executive director of Repeat Reuse. We're a 501c3 nonprofit located in Riverside. And I noticed that the focus of the Riverside San Bernardino MSA is just transportation and buildings. Does that mean that we don't have any opportunity to focus on any kind of materials recovery or any kind of reuse or repair activities in this region?
So the PCAP measures that are being proposed under our the measures being proposed under our MSA were really designed and pulled from the largest sources of GHG emissions that were identified in our various regional climate action plans between both Riverside and San Bernardino counties. So that's where we started with, was to identify where there could be the greatest impact on reduction of GHG emissions, which, as Sarah Jo indicated earlier, is a primary focal point in how the applications will be scored.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Maybe just wait for one moment in case people are formulating a question or a comment. Okay, it sounds like nobody else has a comment or a question. So if we can go to the last slide. Just wanted to list some resources and next steps and say thank you for all of the feedback today, and we really appreciate it. We also encourage interested stakeholders, again, to submit written feedback online via the link here on the slide. We look forward to reviewing anything that people care to submit. In addition, we want to encourage any eligible entities who have submitted ideas to the state PCAP who are not otherwise covered by a local planning grant to check out the EPA's website in detail for the application details and instructions. And finally, last but not least, I really want to thank all of the state speakers who joined here today, as well as all of the speakers from the various MSAs. As you can see, CPRG is an all hands on deck effort, and we definitely can't do this alone. So thank you to everybody. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.